I was woken up by a beam pinning me down. Not a gradual return to consciousness, it was the pain that jolted me awake. 12 centimeters above my left knee, a chunk of concrete beam was wedged tight, weighing somewhere between 120 and 150 kilograms. I could estimate that number precisely because I'd worked as an industrial building quality inspector for 11 years, dealing with loads, stress, and load-bearing limits every single day. Everything around me was pitch black. Dust choked my throat, and with every breath I could taste cement and rust. I was lying on my side in a triangular pocket of rubble. My left wrist was swollen, but my right hand could still move. My torso was pinned between two floor slabs, leaving limited room for my chest to expand, but my ribs weren't broken. That was my first round of injury assessment, like evaluating the remaining lifespan of a half-collapsed building on a construction site. My phone was half a meter ahead to my left, screen facing down, the back panel cracked. I managed to reach it. The moment the screen lit up, I saw the time, 10:11 p.m. The earthquake struck at 9:52. I was on a business trip to this city for a project acceptance inspection, staying on the 5th floor of the hotel. From the moment the earthquake hit, to being buried, to now waking up and calmly assessing my injuries, 19 minutes had passed. There was only one bar of signal. I dialed 119 first. Busy tone. I tried again. Busy tone. I didn't waste a third attempt. I opened WeChat, sent my location and a voice message to the local project contact, specifying the floor, room number, trapped position, and injury assessment. I took a screenshot and confirmed it was sent. Then I started scrolling through my contacts. I needed someone who could reach me within 2 hours. Someone with a car, physical strength, and the willingness to drive across a city that had just been hit by an earthquake in the dead of night. I had no friends or colleagues in this city, and the engineer from the partner company lived too far away. I can only make long-distance calls. I dialed my brother's number first. It rang 3 times, then he picked up. In the background, there was the noise of loud music and the roar of a crowd, like watching a game. "Bro, the place I'm on business trip had an earthquake. I'm trapped in a building, and my leg is injured." My speech was very slow, as if I were giving a technical report. There was silence on the other end for about 2 seconds. Then my brother said, "Aren't you speaking pretty clearly right now?" I didn't respond. "I'm telling you, tonight's the World Cup final, and I finally managed to get together with the guys. I really can't leave right now." In the background, someone shouted, "Silas, hurry up, Messi's about to take the penalty kick." My brother's voice grew urgent. "Did you call 120? Call 120. Even if I head over now, I won't make it in time. I'm back in our hometown, hundreds of kilometers away from you. Bro, I just need you to help me get in touch with the local." Alright, I get it. I'll come over first thing tomorrow. Figure something out on your own for now. You've always been tough, nothing's going to happen to you. Gotta go, the match is starting. Call duration, 1 minute 52 seconds. I stared at the number on the screen. My leg was bleeding, I could feel the warm liquid trickling down my calf. But I didn't cry. Tears had never solved a single problem for me in this life. I dialed the second number. "Mom." She picked up after 2 rings, the background noise from the TV, canned laughter from some variety show. "Mom, I was in an earthquake. I'm trapped under rubble, and my leg is injured." 2 seconds of silence. "Isn't your brother near that city? Call him instead. He said he's watching the game and can't come." Then call 120, "What use is it calling me? I'm back in my hometown, I can't drive, what can I do?" I closed my eyes. "Mom, I just wanted to let you know how I'm doing. If you can't reach me later." Alright, don't say such unlucky things." My mother's voice suddenly rose. "You've always liked saying things like that to scare people since you were little. Your brother's right, if you were really that bad off, would you be this calm calling me? You're definitely fine." Yeah, I said. I understand. I hung up the phone. My father's name was in my contacts. I scrolled past it. I dialed a number saved under Attorney Croft. It was picked up after one ring. Iris? Attorney Croft, I'm in trouble. I'm trapped under earthquake rubble, and my left leg is injured and bleeding. I'll send you my location and a description of my injuries. I need you to do a few things for me. First, contact the local emergency command center and report my information. Second, contact my insurance company to initiate the emergency rescue procedure. Third, draft a document for me. I'll send you the content shortly. There was a second of silence on the other end, followed by the sound of keystrokes. Understood. I'll handle it right away. One more thing, I said. Go ahead. Check on the status of my trust account for me. Trust account? Attorney Croft was clearly taken aback. He had handled many legal matters for me, but had never heard me mention a trust. Yes. Set up last year. The beneficiary is myself. All right, I'll check and get back to you. After hanging up, I turned my phone's screen brightness to the lowest setting and activated power saving mode. The battery was at 33%. I placed the phone face down on my chest and closed my eyes. I didn't tell anyone. Last year, I secretly set up a family trust. I didn't tell my mother, I didn't tell my brother, I didn't tell a single relative. The trust structure was irrevocable, and the beneficiary was myself. The initial deposit was $350,000, the only sum of money I hadn't transferred to my family in my 11 years of working. I hid this money away. It wasn't out of hatred. It was because 3 years ago, I conducted a financial analysis of my family's situation, like drafting a building inspection report, listing out all income, expenses, transfers, and debts, and performing a complete audit. The audit results kept me awake all night. In my 11 years of working, my total income was approximately $2.1 million. Of that, the money I transferred to my family over 7 years totaled 632,000 yuan. And at 32 years old, my bank account balance was only 3,216 yuan and 83 cents. I own a small apartment that's still being paid off, and a car I've been driving for 6 years. That's it. And my brother, that man who earns only 4,000 yuan a month, drives a second car bought with my money, wears a watch bought with my money, and fires off rockets in a live stream for a woman in her early 20s. I spent a month completing all the data cross-verification. I logged into my brother's social media account. The password was my birthday, because in that household, everyone's password was my birthday, yet no one remembered what day my birthday actually fell on. Livestream tipping record, 124,000 yuan. Shopping records, Nike shoes, Adidas clothes, Fjallraven backpack, all at full price. Travel records, Sanya, Chengdu, Chongqing, at least twice a year. I took screenshots of every single one and saved them in an encrypted folder. Not for revenge. But to confirm one thing, where exactly all my years of giving had flowed to. The answer was clear, into a bottomless pit. The name of that pit was someone mistakenly thought of as family. I found Croft, the lawyer, at the end of last year and set up that trust. 350,000, saved penny by penny from my own mouth. I didn't tell anyone. Because if I had told my family, this trust would never have existed. My mother would cry, my brother would make a scene, my father would look at me with that disappointed gaze, and then I would hand over that money too, swept up in a tide of moral blackmail. I know this script. I've played it too many times. But this time I'm not going to play it anymore. The sound of an ambulance came from outside the ruins, growing closer. I opened my eyes and looked at the crack above me, stretching from the corner of the wall to the edge of the fluorescent light. My phone lit up. A message from Croft, the lawyer. The emergency command center has received your information. The rescue team is locating you. The insurance company's emergency rescue has been initiated. The trust account status is normal, with a balance of 352,000. I reply with one word, okay. Then I opened the banking app and scrolled to the automatic transfer settings page. There was a monthly automatic transfer scheduled for the 15th, amounting to 15,000 yuan, with the recipient listed as Mother. This transfer had been going on for 5 years, without a single interruption. I hovered my finger over the Cancel Automatic Transfer button. I paused for 5 seconds. Then I tapped it. Cancellation successful. The second one, a monthly automatic transfer of 5,000 yuan on the 20th, recipient, older brother. Cancelled. Third transaction, the automatic transfer of 2,000 yuan on the 28th of each month, with the note Household Reserve. Cancelled. Fourth transaction, the automatic transfer of 10,000 yuan per quarter, recipient, father. Cancelled. 4 taps. 7 years of support reduced to 0 in 4 clicks. I exit the app, open the memo, and type a line, effective immediately, all non-business transfers are fully terminated. Then I lock the screen and press the phone against my chest. The rescue team pulled me out at 4:12 in the morning. My left leg had been compressed beyond the critical threshold, and the compartment syndrome indicators had reached a level requiring emergency surgery. As I was carried onto the ambulance, I was still conscious. I heard the emergency personnel discussing my leg, using words like fasciotomy and possible necrosis. I didn't interrupt, just turned my head to glance at my blood-soaked pant leg, then closed my eyes. The surgery lasted 4 hours. When I woke up, the hospital room ceiling was clean. My left leg was in a cast, heavy as a concrete pillar. A single room, windows facing south. My phone was charging on the nightstand, battery at 87%. I opened WeChat. The family group chat had 46 unread messages. At the very top was a message from my mother, sent at 1:20 a.m. Iris encountered an earthquake. Please pray for her. Below it were copy-paste replies from a few relatives. Then came my brother's message, she's fine now. The rescue team has already dug her out. The hospital just called me. She only has a minor leg injury, nothing serious. I stared at those words. No one had called me. The hospital wouldn't call someone without authorization at 1 in the morning. My brother's only source of information was the 1-minute 52-second call I made to him last night. Below that was a reply from my uncle, that kid has always been a worry since she was little. My aunt, surviving a great disaster brings good fortune. My other aunt, I heard the earthquake was pretty severe where she was on business. Just being alive means she's lucky. Then my brother replied, you all know how she is. Ever since she was little, she's made everything seem like the sky is falling. It's just a small thing, but she always blows it out of proportion. I flipped my phone over and placed it face down on the bed. I didn't reply. I didn't explain why this month's household allowance hadn't been transferred yet. I didn't mention that I had cancelled all automatic payments. I just lay quietly on the hospital bed, like a finance department that had finished all its internal reconciliations, waiting for those who depended on my cash flow to discover on their own that the account was already empty. I knew they wouldn't wait long. On the 3rd day, my mother called. Not to ask about my leg. She asked, Iris, I checked this month's household allowance and it seems like it hasn't arrived. Is there a problem with the bank system? I was doing passive training on my left leg, fine beads of sweat forming on my forehead from the pain. I said into the speakerphone, there's no problem. I'm not sending money anymore. There was silence on the other end of the line for about 3 seconds. What do you mean, not sending money anymore? Exactly what it sounds like. Starting this month, I'm not sending money home anymore. Why are you suddenly saying something like this? Mother's voice began to tremble. Did something happen to you? Are you being bullied out there? I'm not being bullied. I just made a decision. You're out there on your own, everything costs money, food, clothes, daily necessities. If you don't send money home, what are you saving so much for? You're a girl. Mom, I interrupted her, I'm 32 years old. My mother was choked by these words. I'm not 20 years old. I don't need you to tell me how a girl should spend her money. I've worked for 11 years and sent home 632,000 yuan. I paid the down payment for my brother's car, the startup capital for his restaurant, his children's tuition, the money you used to renovate the house back home, and Dad's annual medical checkups. All of it came from me. What are you counting all that for? My mother's voice rose. Has anyone in this family ever kept accounts with you? I'm not keeping accounts. I'm just stating the facts. And the fact is, I'm not transferring anymore. My mother hung up. I placed my phone on the nightstand and continued my rehabilitation exercises. When the physical therapist bent my knee, the pain made me clench my teeth, but I didn't let out a sound. That evening, the family group chat exploded. Not because of anything I said. I hadn't sent a single word in the group. It was my mother who spoke. Iris called me today and said she won't be sending money home anymore. I don't know if she's run into some trouble out there, or if someone has tricked her. Now she's injured her leg, all alone in a foreign place, and I'm really worried. Below that was my brother's reply. What does she mean by that? Mom and Dad raised her all these years, and now she just decides to stop giving? Uncle, this kid used to be so sensible. How did she turn out like this? Third aunt, have you made some bad friends outside? Fourth aunt, Iris, don't be impulsive. We're family, let's talk things out properly. Cousin, Iris, calm down. Doing this will only break Mom's heart. I looked at these messages, reading them one by one, screenshotting them one by one, and saving them into a folder named Appendix B. I didn't reply. Then my brother posted something. The time was 9:12 p.m. My sister used to be really sensible and treated the family well. I don't know when she started to change. Now she doesn't even care about our parents. As her brother, I'm really sad. The attached image was a childhood photo of us together. I was about 5 or 6, my brother around 10, both of us standing in the yard of our old home, smiling happily. Over 60 people had liked it. The comments flooded in. What happened to your sister? How could this be? Silas, don't be sad. She'll come around someday. I saw that post too. My first reaction wasn't anger, it was admiration. Admiration that my brother could switch from taker to victim in such a short time. It's a skill honed through long-term training. I took a screenshot. Then I opened my brother's livestream account. Last night's stream was still there. From 8 in the evening to 2 in the morning, he had been in that female streamer's room. The tipping record showed he had spent a total of 4,200 yuan on gifts last night, including 2 rockets, each worth 1,000 yuan. Time distribution, between 9 and 11 at night, 2 rockets and several other gifts. It was during those few hours I waited for rescue in the rubble. I took a screenshot of the timestamp of the call I made to him, 10:08 p.m., and placed it side by side with the time the rocket was launched, 10:11 p.m. The screen on the left showed, call duration 1 minute 52 seconds, outgoing time 22 hours 8 minutes and 17 seconds. The screen on the right showed, rocket times 1, launch time 22 hours 11 minutes and 3 seconds. Less than 3 minutes apart. When he was sending rockets in the livestream, my leg was pinned under a steel beam, blood was seeping out, and my own brother had just said to me on the phone, if you were really that badly off, could you still be talking to me so calmly? I saved that set of screenshots into attachment B and wrote a line in the notes. Within 3 minutes after the call ended, the individual spent 1,000 yuan on a livestream platform. Then I sent a message to Attorney Croft, help me check if my brother has any other hidden assets or debts under his name. Attorney Croft replied, received. Also, there's been progress on that matter you asked me to look into before. Your grandfather did leave behind some documents before he passed, and they're currently in my possession. Do you need me to send them to you now? My finger paused. Send. Attorney Croft sent over a dozen photos. All were yellowed paper, edges curled, some places stained with watermarks. But the handwriting on them was clear. It was my grandfather's handwriting. Bold, scrawled, every stroke as if written with all his strength. I flipped through them one by one. The first was a handwritten will. The content was brief. The family home in the old hometown was to be inherited by his granddaughter, Iris. The savings were to be divided into 3 shares, with Iris taking half and the remaining half split equally between his 2 sons. Each page bore my grandfather's signature and thumbprint, alongside the signatures of 2 witnesses. The second was a copy of a notarized document. The heading read, Certificate of Confirmation of Property Ownership Rights, dated 31 years ago. The content stated, the house in the old hometown was purchased entirely with funds personally provided by my grandfather, with no financial contribution from his sons Lawrence or Edmund, my father. The red official seal was still there, like a dried bloodstain. The third one was a handwritten letter. It wasn't addressed to me, but to my great-uncle. I began to read the letter. Brother Walter, the biggest mistake of my life was not seeing things clearly sooner. By the time I did, it was already too late. My 2 sons had already been spoiled rotten. They grew up watching me hand over money to the family, watching me have everything taken away. What they learned wasn't sympathy for me, they learned to wait until they grew up so they could do the same to my child. My only granddaughter, Iris, will surely be treated as a tool by them in the future. I've left these things for you. When the time comes, give them to her on my behalf. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put down my phone and stared at the white fluorescent light on the ceiling for a long, long time. I finally know who built that load-bearing wall. It wasn't me. It was my grandfather. I'm just retracing his path. But my father and my brother were never part of that wall. They are the cracks in the wall, the rust in the rebar, the things that have been eating away at this wall from the very beginning. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Lawyer Croft. I need to go back to my hometown before the weekend. Help me book a notary. On the 11th day, my brother posted an announcement in the family group chat. Iris is out of the hospital. Everyone should come back this weekend. Let's get together and throw her a welcome home party. It'll be at the old place. I booked the restaurant. Saturday evening at 6. When I saw this message, I was doing weight-bearing exercises on my left leg. I didn't reply. But I knew this wasn't a welcome home party. It was a feast at home men. In the 11 days since the automatic transfer was cancelled, no one had called to interrogate me again. But every time I stayed silent in the family group chat, it was interpreted as guilty conscience or cold-bloodedness. My brother continued playing the role of the good brother who worries himself sick over his little sister in his posts, while my mother kept repeating to relatives on the phone, I don't know why she turned out like this either. They needed a public trial. A table full of relatives, glasses brimming with alcohol, everyone's eyes fixed on me. In such a setting, no one can say no to filial piety. I would be besieged, morally blackmailed, forced to choose between returning to the family and being abandoned by everyone. They thought I had no other choice. At 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, I packed my things. A backpack, containing 3 items, first, the printed summary of transfer and spending records, 7 years of data, a total of 632,000 yuan, each entry highlighted with a fluorescent marker. Second, my grandfather's will, the title confirmation, and a copy of that letter. Third, a backup phone, which held screenshots of my brother's live-streaming tip records and a cross-verification chart of timestamps. I didn't tell anyone I had brought these things. I also brought someone along. Lawyer Croft was waiting for me at the entrance of the restaurant. Suit, briefcase, his expression like a wall without a single crack. Iris, the notary is already on the way. Yeah. Leaning on my cane, I walked step by step into the farmhouse-style hall called Jushan Pavilion. Nearly 20 people were seated in the hall. My mother, father, older brother, sister-in-law and nephew, my uncle and his wife, my second uncle and his wife, my third aunt and her husband, my fourth aunt-in-law, my cousin and her husband, and a few distant relatives whose names I couldn't quite remember. Everyone's eyes fell on my left leg as I walked in with my cane. My mother stood up to come help me, but stopped after only 2 steps. I walked to the table on my own and found an empty seat. I leaned my cane against the back of the chair and placed my backpack on my lap. My brother sat at the head of the table, wearing a new polo shirt with the collar popped up, and a watch on his wrist. I recognized that watch. It came from the emergency fund I had transferred to him last year. "Iris, you've lost weight," my brother said with a smile. "Yeah. How are your legs?" "Not bad." "That's good." My brother turned to look at the others. "I told you, Iris is tough, she can get through anything." A chorus of agreeing laughter rose around the table. The dishes started arriving. Cold appetizers, hot courses, soup, and staples. The clatter of chopsticks and spoons, the creak of the lazy Susan, the sound of wine being poured. Everything was normal as a real family gathering. I took a few bites, then set down my chopsticks and waited. At 6:20, my mother put down her chopsticks. "Iris," she began in that casual, offhand tone, "are you going to send this month's household expenses or not? Last time you said you wouldn't transfer the money. I thought you were joking." "Here it comes." The noise at the table died down. Everyone's ears turned in this direction. "I wasn't joking," I said. "What do you mean by that?" my brother cut in, his voice not loud but each word enunciated clearly. "You're out there on your own. What are you saving all that money for? Mom and Dad are getting older. Don't you have a responsibility to take care of them?" "I've taken care of them for 7 years." "So you think you're something special just because you've done it for 7 years?" My brother's voice rose. "Mom and Dad raised you for all these years, and now you're keeping score? Are you even human?" I didn't respond. I lowered my head, unzipped my backpack, pulled out the first document, and placed it on the table. The sound of paper meeting the tabletop was strikingly clear in the quiet hall. "These are records of all the money I've sent home over the past 7 years. Total, 632,000 yuan. I pushed the file forward half a meter. "This page is the 30,000 for your car. This page is the 100,000 for your restaurant. This page is your Livestream tipping record from last year, 124,000 yuan. My brother's face turned pale. "You investigated me?" "I was checking my own money. Every single cent transferred out of my account. I have the right to know where it went." I pulled a second document from my bag. "This is your Livestream tipping record from November 20th. You sent a 1,000-yuan rocket in a female streamer's room. The time was 10:11 p.m. And at 10:08 p.m. that night, you were on the phone with me." I raised my phone, the screen showing a screenshot of the cross-referenced timestamps. "I told you I was trapped under rubble, bleeding from my leg. You said you were watching a game and couldn't come. You said, if you were really that badly hurt, would you be talking to me so calmly? Then you hung up, and within 3 minutes, you sent a 1,000-yuan rocket." The hall was so quiet that you could hear the exhaust fan in the distant kitchen. My brother's lips were trembling. That wasn't me who sent those gifts. It was my friend using my account." "Your friend used your account to send thousands of dollars in gifts every month? For an entire year?" My brother opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Mother stood up. "Iris, your brother, he might have just made a foolish mistake." "Mom, sit down." My tone was calm, almost cold. "I'm not finished yet." Mother didn't sit down, but she didn't say anything more either. I pulled out the third document. "Grandfather's. This is grandfather's will, the property title deed, and a letter he left behind. The will clearly states that the property in our hometown is to be inherited by me. The title deed makes it even clearer. The funds for purchasing the house in our hometown were entirely provided by grandfather himself. Uncle and my father didn't contribute a single cent. I flipped the document to that page, tapped my index finger on the line grandfather had circled in red, and then pushed it to the center of the table. Uncle's face changed. My father's face changed too. What do you mean by bringing this out? My father's voice was low, as if squeezed from his chest. I'm not threatening you. I'm clarifying the facts. You've always said that the family supported my education, raised me, so I have to repay. But the truth is, the house was bought by Grandpa alone, and his will left everything to me. You live in Grandpa's house, spend the money I earn, and then tell me this is family. I took out a copy of Grandpa's letter from my bag and placed it on top. This is a letter Grandpa wrote to second Grandpa. You can take a look. The letter was passed around the table. No one spoke. My sister-in-law lowered her head. My uncle lit a cigarette, his hand trembling. My mother's eyes reddened, but no tears fell. I pulled out the last item from my bag, the backup phone, pressed play, and placed it in the center of the table. On the screen, Attorney Croft appeared in the frame. Good evening, everyone. I am Attorney Croft, representing Ms. Iris. The following is her formal legal statement regarding the distribution of family assets. The video played for a minute and a half. The core content consisted of only 4 points. First, effective immediately, I will terminate all non-business related internal family transfers. Second, among the 632,000 yuan in transfers accumulated over the past 7 years, I reserve the right to claim the portion that constitutes a loan, totaling 213,000 yuan. Third, regarding the property explicitly bequeathed to me in grandfather's will, I will initiate the transfer and sale procedures next month. Fourth, any moral accusations of unfilial or cold-blooded will be handled by my lawyer on my behalf. After the video ended, the screen went black. My brother shot to his feet, his chair sliding half a meter backward. You hired a lawyer? You actually hired a lawyer? Did you come here for a meal or to tear the family apart? I looked up at him. I came for the meal. But you didn't. I stood up, leaning on my cane. A dull ache throbbed in my left leg, but I steadied myself, not letting anyone see my weight shift. You didn't invite me here to welcome me back. You wanted me to come back and keep handing over money. You thought that with this meal, with all these relatives around the table, I wouldn't dare say no. But I don't need your meal, and I don't need your moral blackmail. Mother finally burst into tears. Iris, how did you become like this? You weren't like this before. What was I like before? You used to be so sensible, so obedient, never causing the family any worry. I used to send all my money to you, living in a partitioned room in a shanty town, eating 12-yuan boxed lunches, using a phone with a cracked screen, wearing discounted clothes from Taobao. I'm 31 years old, and there's only 3,000 yuan in my bank account. Meanwhile, your son, my dear brother, uses my money to send rockets on live streams, stay in hotels, and buy designer brands. My voice didn't rise, didn't tremble. Every word landed on the table like a nail. This is what I used to be like. I'm not going to be that way anymore. I turned around, leaning on my cane, step by step toward the door. Behind me came my brother's voice, cutting through the air like a dull blade. Iris, if you walk out that door today, don't even think about coming back. I didn't stop. I said, did you hear me? I walked to the door. The night wind rushed in from outside, blowing against my face. I stopped, but did not look back. I heard you. Then I stepped over the threshold. Behind me in the hall, the sounds of crying, arguing, and chairs toppling over mingled together. Leaning on my cane, I descended the steps in front of the hotel one by one. Each step was steady. The left leg in its cast ached, but my back remained straight. Attorney Croft was waiting for me by the car. He opened the rear door and only closed it after I had settled inside. As the car pulled out of the parking lot, I saw the figures standing at the entrance of the restaurant in the rearview mirror. My mother stood at the front, my brother behind her, my uncle smoking a cigarette, and my second uncle on the phone. Everyone was standing at the door, but no one came after me. I felt neither satisfaction nor sadness. I just felt very quiet. Like a system that, after unloading all its burdens, had finally begun to idle. Iris, Attorney Croft turned from the passenger seat. The notary will be at your apartment tomorrow at 10. I've already prepared the plan for the additional injection into the trust account. Okay. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. 3 months later. The cast was off. The muscles in my left leg had atrophied, and I still walked with a slight limp, but the rehab doctor said that with consistent training, I could recover within 6 months. The house back home was sold. $1,180,000. 60% went into a trust, and the remaining 40% was set aside for rehabilitation and living expenses. I never went back to my hometown. I didn't attend any family gatherings, nor did I send a single message in the family group chat. I saved my brother's number in my contacts, changed the nickname to his full name, and deleted the word brother. Mother called 3 times. The first time, she cried and said, "How did you become like this?" I said, "I haven't changed. I just stopped giving." She hung up. The second time, she didn't cry. She said, "Your brother's restaurant is about to go under." I said, "That's his problem." The third time, she didn't mention money or my brother. She just asked, "Is your leg better?" I said, "It's recovering." She said, "That's good," and hung up. I took screenshots of all 3 call logs and saved them in a folder named Exhibit C. I left those folders on my computer desktop, neither deleting them nor opening them again. Like the case file of a closed trial, no longer needing to be reviewed, but kept because it is the truth. My brother's restaurant shut down in the 5th month. Not because I stopped being his lifeline, but because he never knew how to run a business. He thought that when things went south, a sister would pull another 100,000 yuan out of her bank account to save him. But she didn't. That sister was 800 kilometers away in a rehabilitation center, doing the last round of strength training for her left leg. I was drenched in sweat, gasping for air, but my eyes were bright. There was no hatred in them. Only a calm, confirmed sense of relief. On the last day at the rehabilitation center, I received a letter. There was no name on the envelope, and the postmark was from my hometown. I opened it, and inside was just a single sheet of paper with a line of writing, penned in that old-fashioned, slightly trembling fountain pen script. "Iris, your grandfather entrusted this letter to me back then, saying to give it to you when the time was right. I don't know if the time has come, but I'm old, and I'm afraid I won't be able to wait any longer. Do what you have to do, and don't worry about what others say." The signature was Walter. On the back of the letter was my grandfather's handwriting. Just one sentence. "Iris, become the person you truly want to be. Not someone's daughter, not someone's sister, not someone's ATM. Just yourself." I folded the letter and tucked it into the inner pocket of my wallet, right next to the trust card. I pulled out my phone and opened the trust account interface. Account balance, 873,000 yuan exactly. Note, irrevocable. Beneficiary, Iris. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I smiled. Not that bitter smile tinged with tears. It was a clean, light smile, the kind of smile someone lets out after finally shedding all their burdens and stretching lazily in an open field. The sunlight outside the window fell on my leg, now free of its cast. That leg was wearing a new pair of sweatpants, not a name brand, bought off Taobao. But they looked good on me. Because I bought them for myself. Not for my mother, not for my brother, not for that so-called home. For myself. I stood up, without crutches, and walked step by step to the window. My pace wasn't fast, but it was steady. Like a building that had just passed all its safety inspections. The new load-bearing walls were already in place. This time, the foundation was my own.